Hey there, welcome to Factually. I'm Adam Conover. Thank you so much for joining me on the show again. You know, American politics and media have been especially fucked up over the last couple weeks. I feel like I start a lot of shows by saying that, but let's just do a quick list to break down exactly how bad things have been. The Democratic establishment in New York City chose a sex-abusing, corrupt former governor named Andrew Cuomo to be their choice to run as mayor of New York City. Trump recently bombed Iran, barely setting back their nuclear program while risking a catastrophic wider war, all while his administration continues to illegally kidnap immigrants and demolish the federal government. And of course, Democrats aren't doing shit to stop him. In fact, they can't even decide if they should one day say that they are interested in stopping him. And of course, the media that used to report on all the bad shit happening around the world in towns and cities across America has been obliterated. Instead, we now get our information about these horrifying events from algorithm influencers like me and maybe from the odd newsletter writer or two if you're lucky. It's enough to make you want to tune out of the news entirely and just spend the rest of your life watching baseball, right? But you know, there are some green shoots starting to spring up. The Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani just won the Democratic primary in New York City, running on, you know, having a government that actually makes life more affordable for the people who live there. What a fucking concept. And we're starting to see some success stories in media again. One of my favorite media outlets right now is Defector. It's an incredible blog that was started by a bunch of staffers who escaped from Deadspin, the beloved sports and pop culture website that was run to the ground by some private equity vulture capitalists. These journalists started Defector as a worker-run cooperative to escape the bullshit of corporate media. They cover sports, politics, the internet, pop culture incisively and compellingly, and 5 years in, they have had incredible success doing it. Now, one of my favorite writers at Defector is Dave Roth. He's an incredible writer, an incredible journalist. He doesn't just write about the cursed baseball team, the Mets, which I also follow, but he also writes about politics both nationally and locally with incredible insight. I wanted to talk to him about what just happened in New York and what is happening across the country right now, both in sports, culture, and politics. I know you're going to love this conversation. Before we get into it, I want to remind you that if you want to support this show and all the conversations we bring you every single week, head to patreon.com/Adam Conover. $5 a month gets you every episode of the show ad-free. And if you want to come see me do stand-up comedy on the road, I just announced a new batch of fall tour dates, the Big Divorce Energy Tour. That is the name that I am going with. This fall, we're headed to Indianapolis, St. Louis, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Brea, California, Tacoma and Spokane, Washington, Des Moines, Iowa, Atlanta, Georgia, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Head to adamconover.net for all those tickets and tour dates. And now let's get to this conversation with the very funny and insightful Dave Roth. Okay, Dave, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. We've been talking for 40 minutes.
We've already been talking for 40 minutes about stuff that we're like, that the podcast can't begin that way. It could be the kind of podcast where, oh my God, we've started in the middle of the conversation, except that we were already down like a rabbit hole that people aren't going to follow.
Right. I was going to make, it's probably better if we leave it and we're just being like, that was too hot for the pod. Because it was really me being like, did you ever get off at the Lorimer stop on the L and there was a deli? It's still there. It's just not very...
This is what happens when I come back to New York. I haven't lived here for 10 years, but every time I do, it's just like New York talk all the time. What subway stop, where I used to get a bacon, egg, and cheese. I had the best morning because, first of all, everyone here is always running 15 minutes late, which I love.
Very much me included, literally 15 minutes.
And I got the fastest egg and cheese sandwich I've never had food served this quickly in my life. And the man made an egg and cheese from scratch for me while I was about to get on the Bedford L so I could get here. And I was like, I'm back. I'm so happy.
That's what it's all about.
Bizarre city. The vibe in New York is like really different than anything I've experienced before, because I came here to sort of clear my head and like do some stand up and do some writing and stuff like that. And I've been talking about politics too much on like my channel and shit. And I want to just do some comedy. And I come here and people are like more engaged in, I lived in New York for 10 years. I never saw people give a shit about a city election before in my life.
Yeah, this is new to me. I've lived here for 24 years. And this is there have been times when people cared about politics, but for national races, which are the ones that most people care about, it's a foregone conclusion. Like New York is going to be, one color and that's how it's going to be. There'd be no reason to canvass or do any of that shit.
Yep.
And then all the mayoral elections have this kind of I like what I imagine it's like to find out you've been nominated for a Razzie award is like what I think like being like in the mayoral conversation is, where it's kind of like, well, it's nice that you thought of me, but like, why did you think of me like this? Like it's every, few years in an off year election that is designed exclusively to be voted in by perverts. Like it's 2025. No elections happen in 2025.
Right.
5 is not a number that has elections associated with it. So it's this weird machine run thing to elect the like sin eater clown that the city is going to scream at for like the next 4 years.
Yeah.
And most of there have been more and less effective mayors, but there's never anybody where, maybe this is true, but I don't remember anyone like knocking on my door and being like, have you heard the good news about Michael Bloomberg?
Yeah.
This is not how it goes.
I lived here during the Bloomberg years, and the vibe was, Bloomberg is a billionaire, so he's not going to have to eat shit like everybody else. He can sort of do what he wants. And like, he mostly did. And like, some of it was good. There was stop and frisk and some other bad shit. But he was sort of he was almost like a regular city executive. And then after that, when it went back to sort of normal mayors, it was like, oh, like, de Blasio gets out there and the police just start shooting him with their guns.
Yes.
And just like shoot him to death and he's dead.
Yep,
and then
sad.
They get a different maniac
Tragic
in there.
That we lost. We lost a lot of good mayors that way. But yes, it was de Blasio was the one that was the closest to people caring because he was the most progressive candidate and he ran a great campaign. Like this is the thing with Blasio is like to the extent that anybody outside of New York City knows or cares who he is. It's because he ran this insanely clownish presidential campaign.
Right.
And,
I forgot about that.
Which was basically, it was him taking a break from like, I live in this big city where I have like a 22% approval rating. The only thing left for me to do, like I've conquered, that's everything that I ever wanted. It's time to go to Iowa and eat a cutlet on a stick.
Maybe it almost qualifies him. He's like, I was elected in the biggest city in the country and they hate me there.
Yep.
So I should be able to take that hatred and power it to the entire rest of the...
We've run the numbers and we think it can scale.
And my understanding is like the rich conservatives and the Post like destroyed de Blasio like they will want to do to Mamdani. But also I knew like progressives in city government who were just like, de Blasio is just like a lazy idiot. Like they like by 6 months in, people were just like, oh, he's just... fuck.
Yeah, he got a few good things done.
Yeah.
And then he bailed, which is like a pretty common move for a mayor. Like the reason Bloomberg didn't was that like he could just take a helicopter anywhere he wanted to go. Like if he was stressed out, he's like, I'll be in Barbuda for the next 72 hours and just would do it.
What I liked about Bloomberg was it felt like he was a guy who reads, he's like a technocrat, right? And so he would like read like a scientific paper about like, oh, if a cup is really big, you'll drink more of it and then you'll drink more sugar.
Yep.
And then he'll like I remember trying to explain this to people being like, no, if the container is big, you'll drink more than you mean to. And then you could like gain weight or get diabetes. So like, we're going to make the cup smaller. And I was like, yeah, man. Like,
it wasn't wrong. The difference is that every time that Bloomberg had to address the public, he had this look on his face where he's like, can you believe that I am talking to you assholes? Like, this is amazing, right? Like, and it wasn't the sort of thing where it wasn't like condescending. It was kind of like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm talking to a Puerto Rican guy.
Yeah.
And that's never happened to me before. And like somebody was like, he didn't seem to love it, but he seemed to like kind of be like bemused by being mayor.
Yeah. He had that thing where he was trying to learn Spanish and he was bad at it, but it was cute. Mm-hmm. He was like, hola, me llamo
Miguel Bloombito. Yeah, like so he was sort of trying, but he was always, I think that honestly, like this was sort of relatable to me as someone who has like I don't have $1 billion. I don't have like a helicopter or whatever. The times that I've tried to learn new things as an adult, I have failed. Yeah. And then also the whole time it's hard to like sort of get out of your own way because you can like see or hear yourself in your head and being like, that is not like, you are not conjugating that verb correctly, man. Like this is not Italian. And the Italian person you're speaking it to is a little offended by how bad it is. And like Bloomberg seemed to have some of that whenever he was trying to do retail stuff. I remember my sister, who's a doctor, by the way, when she graduated from medical school, Bloomberg gave the speech at their graduation, and fully half of it was like, well, I don't really know what you guys graduated from. I was handed a sheet of paper on my way up here. But it was almost like one of those like Bob Uecker routines where it was like just him talking about how bad he was at baseball for most of a speech. And it was, my dad loved Bloomberg, and even I did not, but even I had to be like, this is kind of endearing because it's better than getting up there and being like, doctors are the heart of New York City or like whatever fake shit. Like he was just kind of like, I don't know, man, I got to go do more of these before dinner.
In retrospect, it was a refreshing like separation from the things a mayor normally has to do to like make the political machine work. Yep. You know, like he did have a certain unbound quality where he could just sort of be a weirdo and do some stuff.
So does Eric Adams.
I was like, we have to get to Eric Adams for a second before we talk about the news of the day. Like that was when Eric Adams started happening and I was not living in New York. That's really made me sad. I was like, I'm not eating pizza. I'm not eating bacon, egg, and cheeses. I'm not talking about this fucking guy.
Yeah. Like my mayor doesn't wear any Live Strong bracelets. Eric's got all of them. He's got like 9 on at any moment, every moment he's awake. There's a great picture of him during one of his many visits to Israel, a country that he has passionate affinity for. He just loves travel. He loves international travel. This is something that's known about him. Federal court made it a matter of public record. But he, in Israel, there's a picture of him solemnly putting a note into the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. And on his wrist, as he is slipping this note in, is a little lanyard that says grind on it. He was so locked in as a type of guy that like, and it's not like a type of guy that you would ever encounter. He's like an influencer cop.
Yeah.
Like this is just not a personality type. He is ordering off menu. Like this is, but it's, you know, I cannot wait until he fucking leaves and I don't have him as mayor anymore, but I hope he doesn't go away. Like I hope he stays posting.
I think he needs like a George Santos post a moment where it's like he gets to go on the podcast, he gets to hang out with some drag queens. People just get to enjoy him as camp. You know, and because he was a Zaphod Beeblebrox mayor. You know, he was like, he's the party guy. He's not actually getting anything done. And I'm like, he seems like a fun guy to hang out with.
That was basically what he ran as, was like, I'm going to like inspire New York to new heights by demonstrating the power of swag every day by like going out and being like, you know, a physically fit, probably polyamorous man who goes to nightclubs at the age of 60. And it's like, if he was doing that, if there was like a job that was just that, where if it was just like, you got to act like if like horny Mark Jackson, like that's your thing. Just go out there, be in public, like go to a lot of like ribbon cuttings and openings and give weird speeches, but like under no circumstances are you to do any governing. Like I would keep him in that job more or less for as long as he wanted.
And that's a good job. Half of that is New York, right? Is like going out when you shouldn't be going out, doing Molly, even though you're in your 60s.
Yes.
You know,
he had a couple of moments that were like, people were mad at him. One of the, I guess it was like after some flooding. We have a lot of like kind of preventable natural disaster type experiences here because the infrastructure isn't that good, or it's just very old. But there was one that was like, there was bad flooding. He had a birthday party and then just mayor's office was silent until noon the next day. And he did like a live stream. And he looked like, you know, the image of like drunk Don Draper that people use where he kind of looks a little drowned and he's like making a presentation. Like Adam showed up like that, looking like he had like been awakened at 11:40 to be like, sir, there's flooding, low-lying areas of Brooklyn and Queens. And he was like, ah! And then like instantly was online explaining it and being like, you know, this is why you got to stay prayed up or whatever the fuck he said at that moment. And
that's relatable to me as a comic. There are some times where I'm like, I got to go on stage. I had a corporate gig a couple weeks ago at like 9 a.m. and I was not, you know, I was like,
how do you do comedy at 9 a.m?
You know, contractually
eating
is how you do it.
I was going to say like eating a Danish in the front row. Doing some crowd work.
Corporate gigs. You know, it's like, and the great thing is, if it doesn't go that well, it's fine.
And you're done in time for a regular breakfast. Apparently, I was going to say like walking off stage at 9:30 to be like, good bagels near me. Like, where are we doing this?
Eric Adams, like in the last, 6 months, just a comical level of overt corrupt. He and Trump just did corruption in the news.
Yeah.
They were just like, I'm going to go to jail, but what if I do what if I like fulfill your priorities and jail some immigrants or whatever, help let ICE come in and you'll let me off. And Trump was just like in the newspaper. Yes. Sounds great.
This all happened like on TV too,
Yeah.
which is amazing. Like, it's not the sort of thing where a lot of things, in our reality are like this, but there was a moment in that where Tom Homan dragged Eric Adams on TV. They went on Fox News together. Adams barely talked. And Homan is like, this guy knows I'm going to be up his butt if he doesn't do exactly what I say. And Adams had to sit there being like, delightful. Like just hitting the Philip Seymour Hoffman Brandt in Big Lebowski nostril flare fake laugh thing. And it was like, it was humiliating, but it was also one of those things where it's like, this seems like it should be from like a training video. Like if you had to like watch something at work that was like a mandated video that was like, here's how not to do quid pro quo. It was like that level of subtlety, and yet it was happening in the same reality that all of us inhabit.
And that's like our entire political situation is this, like the standards that anybody used to have for behavior or ethics or anything are completely out the window. Like anything is possible at this point. But at the very least, this made Eric Adams completely reviled. He was already reviled among New Yorkers, but it's like his political career is basically dead and led us to this election.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he's still running. He has a lot. This is another New York City politics thing that I'm sure will be fascinating to people that don't live here. So I'll do it quickly. You can basically get your own, if you get enough signatures, you can get your own party line outside of, so Eric Adams was not going to get the Democratic nomination. They refused to let him campaign. He didn't debate anybody. He governed as a Democrat, but he deregistered as a Democrat and then started his own line. So if you vote for Eric Adams in the election in November in New York City, you will be voting on a line that is called Stop Anti-Semitism. It's one word because there's a limit to how many characters you can get in your fake party line that you make up. And it was important to him that he send that message. But it was also like, there's not a shorter way to say it. You could say no anti-Semitism, I guess, and you got the space, and then you got a whole extra character to play with. Maybe there's an exclamation point, but I don't work for him, so I can't make suggestions like that.
Anti-Semitism is a very real issue, but when it is being deployed in that way, even if you're someone who cares more than anybody else about genuine anti-Semitism,
like Eric Adams does,
you have to look at that and go, something has the way anti-Semitism is being deployed in our political culture is a little bit off right now.
A little bit off. The other great of the fake lines, Andrew Cuomo got one that is designed to look, this was in previous years, he created one that was designed to look like the Working Families Party line, which is a sort of the progressive.
Yeah. We've had the head of the Working Families Party on the show.
So Cuomo, the last time he ran for governor, also ran a line that was called like the Working Federated Party or something that was like designed to just basically confuse people.
There was a guy in LA who was running for judge and he changed his name to Judge so that people would think he was a judge already. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is basically people like the way that, this is going to date me, but the way that like in the Yellow Pages at the beginning of it, like this is, I don't know if you're even old enough to know this. Where
I remember the Yellow Pages.
Where there'd be like 7 A's in a row, Electronics Corporation. And then there'd be like, that would be right above one that was 6 A's in a row. And like, it's just trying to be first. Yeah, that's how we govern our city now.
Damn. I love to cook and I love to eat, but you know what I don't love? Shopping. And sometimes that can make it pretty hard to do the whole cooking and eating thing. Lucky for me, today's sponsor, Hungry Root, takes care of the annoying part so I can focus on what I love. Think of Hungry Root as your personal grocery shopper and nutritionist rolled into one. They do the heavy lifting like grocery shopping and meal planning while recommending healthy, delicious groceries and meals that actually match your tastes, dietary needs, and health goals. Whether you're gluten-free, dairy-free, high protein, or just trying to eat better, Hungry Root makes it ridiculously easy. Here's the best part. No more impulse buying junk food because they fill your cart with personalized picks for complete meals based on what you love. And they get smarter as you go, learning what you like and what you don't. Plus, all of Hungry Root's recipes can be whipped up in 15 minutes or less. With over 15,000 recipes shipped each week, there is seriously something for everyone. Hungryroot has completely transformed how I eat, and you are gonna love Hungryroot as much as I do. So take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, you can get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/factually and use code factually. That's hungryroot.com/factually, code factually to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/factually, code factually. So
damn, you live like this?
You live
I do, Adam. I live exactly like this.
I thought LA politics was fucked up.
Yeah.
But
I've enjoyed watching LA politics from afar, or I did until recently. It got really depressing. I just find it interesting that how like it's just another cast of like New York style janky ward healers and creeps. Like the guy is it Caruso, the mall developer?
Yeah.
We don't really have mall developers in New York City.
He's going to come back and run again also against, he's like laying the groundwork to run against Karen Bass a second time as the sort of, I hate Trump and I'm a Democrat, but also all the Republicans are voting for me.
So that's Eric's lane now too. And it's going to be hard. I mean, I think he and Cuomo, who is probably going to stay in the election, are going to be splitting the like weird asshole vote. And there's a lot of them here. But like, I don't think a Republican would vote for either of those guys. Like, they don't like them.
Yeah.
So yeah, good luck, obviously, to Rick Caruso. I've been to the mall. The
Grove, the Americana.
I've been to both.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Americana. I watched Blade Runner 2049 or whatever the year was in that title. I watched that at the Americana Mall at 10:30 in the morning with my friend who had a young baby. So it was the crybaby screening of it. It was.
Let me just say, Rick Caruso's whole thing is that he has built these outdoor malls where you go and then you park and then you walk around a little outdoor mall area, which when you look around, what does this look like? Oh, it's Soho. It's the West Village.
It's a town or a neighborhood. Yeah.
And the entire appeal is that you got to park and walk around. and literally one of the reasons people were voting for him was they were like, oh, I like going to the mall. It's pleasant to go to the mall. Maybe he'll make LA like the mall.
But if he made all of the city the Grove,
then it would be fucking New York City or another walkable city, which is the opposite of what he was going to do because he's, an anti-urbanism guy.
Yeah, his thing was mostly like, I'm going to do that, like that Simpsons gag where a vagrant turns into a mailbox. Like he was just going to do that with the entirety of downtown Los Angeles. That was basically the gambit, right?
Yeah. No, he's like, we're going to put the homeless people, we're going to get one big bulldozer and we're going to push them all into the ocean. Yeah. That was
super. Glad that idea has been discredited and no one is continuing to fucking say it at the highest levels of our government.
We've got a little bit of progress in LA on that front, what they're starting to, but let's come back here because we have missed another disgusting clown in this story who is Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's very good.
Yeah. Who I grew up on Long Island and it was just like my whole life you would just hear Cuomo, Cuomo. Because Mario Cuomo is his father, who was the governor in the 80s,
yes.
Right?
And like a guy that everybody, I don't know if your parents, I don't know what their politics were. My parents are Democrats. Like they basically acted like Mario Cuomo was their real dad.
Yeah.
Like they loved him.
Yeah.
And he was very eloquent and he was like kind of like handsome in a like saddish hangdog, like 70s Pacino kind of way. Like as close to a beloved legislator as you get.
Yeah.
Anyway, Andrew is his awful son.
Who somehow, I'm like, if Mario was the dad, and like, how is Cuomo almost 70 already? How is Andrew Cuomo almost 70?
Yeah.
So governor for 8 years, governor for almost 8 years, yes. Right? Because he left because he was serially sexually harassing everyone around him.
Yeah.
Completely unsurprisingly.
Happened to be timed during that brief, I guess it was like, maybe 18 months where people could be held accountable for stuff like that in the culture. Just bad timing on Andrew's part. Should have waited, I guess. But he was basically forced to resign and had apparently like his whole campaign when he came back to run for mayor of New York City was basically like, fuck all that. Forget it. I didn't learn a thing from it.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. It was another guy that kept touching all those butts and like leering at people. Whatever. I mean, you could see, given the broader moment, how that might have seemed like the right play for him. Where he was just like, nothing is real anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and people like evil guys now.
Yeah.
But that's part of why it's so heartening that it didn't work.
And he's probably like, it's a demotion. It's a less good job.
Yeah.
So it's fitting. You kicked me down a rung.
Yeah, smaller. Like that was basically how he ran. Like he didn't really bother to campaign very much. He never did. He didn't when he was governor either. Like for someone that works, as an elected official, he cannot stand voters. Like he just is not comfortable around them. And so he does very, very little in the way of like appearing in public. If you thought that like Bloomberg was stilted at talking to people, like Cuomo is a guy that just like kind of can't make eye contact, like a weird dude.
Yeah.
And so him running for mayor, I mean, also he's one of those guys that like he grew up in Queens, like sort of like the outer, Caucasian Queens. So like probably much closer to where you grew up on Long Island than where he would have to live as mayor of New York City.
Yeah. And also all the people, he grew up in Queens, all those people moved out to Long Island.
Yes.
Like the white New York accent that people have in their heads has like left the city. They all moved to the suburbs. It was white flight, and so it's like this bygone connection to the city.
Yeah. And he doesn't like it. He has sort of like what you were talking about, though, the idea of like that out-migration, that community of people that left New York in the 70s and 80s when not because it was getting too expensive, but because it sucked. Like things just kind of weren't working very well.
Yeah.
And there's this whole idea of New York that any copy of the New York Post will give it to you. That's the Murdoch-owned tabloid that we've got, which somehow even like normal liberal people in New York City wind up believing that whatever is on the cover of the New York Post is really happening. I don't know how that works. Just good graphic design, I guess. The impact font.
Especially because like I lived in New York long enough ago that I would literally just pay 50 cents for a newspaper before I got on the subway to have something to do.
Yeah.
And we don't do that anymore. And no one's going to NewYorkPost.com. So how is their power growing?
So they've actually have sort of like hacked. They're like the way that like Daily Mail works, like their online thing where they're just aggregating news. If like a black teen and a white teen get in a fight anywhere in the United States, NewYorkPost.com covers it because they know that their audience is like seething racists who are on their phone all the time to be like, disgusting. They live like animals. But that is, they're locked in on that.
Yeah.
It's a growth sector, sadly.
I mean, it's so in the air, I one of the first days I was here a couple weeks ago was when the ICE raids and the protests were first happening in LA. And I was like, next to the place I was staying, I went into a pizza place. There's this awesome New York Italian guy in the back. Hey, what you want? Hey, I'm Anthony. Nice to meet you. I'm like, the pizza's really good. He's like, yeah, we do it here this way. Like, no one does it this way anymore. Like, here's how we make the pizza. And then he's looking at the news like, you see what's happening in Los Angeles?
You believe that shit?
They're fucking destroying the city. They're setting cars on fire. You see what they're doing? They're like, and he just like had that in him. And I was like, I see the media. I can't even be mad at this guy. Because this is the media ecosystem he lives in of reactionary, seeing those headlines like, oh, these people are crazy, don't go there. It's like, it's just
and so that's like basically Cuomo was sort of like the extent that he bothered to run, it was like with that angle and more or less in that tone, if not quite with that rhetoric. Like we were just being like, you guys got a lot of problems. You need somebody tough to clean it up. That's me. Yeah. Like I'm a difficult person. I'm not a nice guy. I don't get along well with others, but like, I promise you, Lynn, I will kick ass. But he wasn't like, I'm going to kick ass for you. It was like, I'm going to kick ass because like, fuck you. I'm Andrew Cuomo. Deal with it. Like, this is it.
And I'm mad I had to resign.
Yes. And so that, unsurprisingly, did not really resonate with the public. But it also, like, until the moment that he lost, I thought he was going to win. And it was, some of it was just that he had this name recognition. And as with, I think, a lot of things in the culture, like what he did in 2020 and 2021, which was basically like some really, really shameful and, like cost many lives, tens of thousands of lives, mismanagement of COVID. This was happening while he was going on TV and basically functioning as like sort of Trump's opposite number. Everybody was doing daily briefings then, and Trump would get up there and be like, we're going to, if you drink the bleach, it doesn't hurt. And then and Cuomo would go up there and be like comparatively less insane.
And he had a brief like liberal boomer pop nationally of people going, oh, Andrew Cuomo, he's the anti-Trump, which Gavin Newsom has also been chasing after. This sort of cheap, this is an adult Democrat in the
Right.
room who's anti-Trump, who like, oh, we can really trust him.
Yes. And Cuomo, too, is like presentationally, in terms of his accent, in terms of like where he's from, is like,
Right.
like the Wario to like Trump. Like there's like
Then Trump is Mario.
Trump is Wario. Sorry, Trump is actually
But then
like
Cuomo is Mario.
There's two, but at least he's
Are
Italian.
they Wario and Waluigi?
Yes, I don't know. It's hard to say. Wow, we should.
Mario is from Brooklyn. I mean, so this works.
So I don't think we should drop this. I think we need to figure this out.
Who's Birdo? Eric Adams is Birdo.
He's Kirby. Okay, I know that's where.
I gotta break this down. We got to do every Mario Kart character in the new game. I want to know who's Shy Guy. I want to know who's Cow.
Police Commissioner Tish. That's Princess Peach. Let's move on. Pretty easy. There's no reason to argue about any of this. Anyway, but they were like similar. You're right. That it was a close enough that you could more or less like talk yourself into it if you needed to, which people did then, because it was like all you could do was fucking watch TV and try not to get sick.
Yeah.
And then, but the reckoning that came from how Cuomo mishandled, like willingly concealed evidence of some very devastating decisions that he made involving putting people with COVID into senior living facilities where they sickened a bunch of people and killed something like 17,000 of them. This report came out and he spiked it. He commissioned a report on state corruption. He spiked that. Like there's a lot of stuff. And, all of it was kind of like reckless. And yet until the moment that he was forced to step down, it just kind of seemed like, in the way that a lot of things do, we're just kind of like, well, this sucks. Like, I don't love knowing this about this guy, but at least it doesn't matter. At least he'll never face any consequences for any of the shit that he did. And, so that experience of him being held to account, that somehow got like memory hold seemingly along with all the other stuff. And I think that part of why he lost was basically that, like, it wasn't that they successfully hung any of this stuff around his head. I mean, I think they did. All the other candidates basically were running against Cuomo by the end. But he came in and he had this, because people knew his name and because he had been on TV, to some effect in 2020. And that was most of what people seem to remember about it. But he came in and had like a 30 or 40 point lead over the field. I mean, it was like everybody else was like topping out around 10%. And he was just, dominating.
I mean, my feeling was there's enough 85-year-olds who vote in deep Queens who are like, I remember his father Mario, and of course they're gonna like, I was like, that's you're done, right?
And
it would seem like it would be.
And I think that's most of what he he did get 38% of the vote in the first round before conceding. It's like a ranked choice voting thing, but he would have lost. Mamdani beat him in the first round. And those voters, like, to the extent that you can see the maps, it's basically like white parts of the city, very, very rich parts of the city, and then like parts of it that are kind of just like machine bound, like older voters, white and black and Latino, tended to go for Cuomo, and then people whose apartments look over Central Park voted for him, which is like it more or less could have worked as a constituency if other people hadn't gotten into the idea of there being this like young, vigorous, charismatic guy who kind of felt like a young New York sort of thing. And I think a lot of people like just were riding the vibe of that. Like Mamdani's got some ideas that I think are all right. I don't know if they'll work or not. Being mayor is a really hard job. Like, you not only do you get screamed at all the time, there's all these like institutions and all this infighting. But this is the first time, I think, to what you were saying about people being like engaged and caring about the shit. Never has electing a mayor felt, in my time here, which again is like going on 25 years, never has it felt like you were actually going to like change anything or even like feel like you were doing anything other than kind of like taking out the garbage by casting a vote.
Right.
Like de Blasio was the most progressive guy in that race, but like I knew he wasn't going to really do very much. And he didn't seem, he was kind of a feckless guy.
He had been the public advocate, right? Which was a constitutionally useless position that is just designed to be, I think, a complainer in chief.
It's sort of a mascot thing. The guy that does it for New York Now is like, he's like a cool version of Eric Adams, like a younger Jumaane Williams. And his thing is basically like just showing up places and being like, how we doing? And he's good at it. Like, but that is what that job is.
Well, let's talk about Mamdani because, I mean, we've been talking for 30 minutes and we've barely mentioned him. And the campaign
is that good?
I think so, because we had to get through all of the comical Mario characters before we got
Thank
to
goodness
him.
we did that. I think the listeners are really going to appreciate it.
It was really fun. But like I landed here. I'd heard about the campaign. I had seen a little bit on social media. Some of my New York friends have been posting about it. I landed in New York a couple of weeks ago. Literally every conversation I have with anyone under the age of 50, Zohran comes up.
Yep.
They're all wearing pins. They're like literally 4 different people I know. I'm like, you want to hang out? They're like, I'm too busy canvassing.
Yep.
It's incredible to see, like, first of all, any political activity in New York at all, but for people to feel that hopeful. What about like Zohran? Do you think captured people's attention? Because I haven't been here. I haven't like been in the soup.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of it is that like the stuff that people are going to give him credit for, and they should give him credit for it. Lots of really good videos, lots of good online presence. Like and so I think that he like engaged younger voters in a way that like most of your other candidates would not or could not. Like there are other good, Brad Lander's campaign. He was sort of like the third place guy and a co-endorsed Mamdani in a way that was like, I think really important for him. Lander is like a solid South Brooklyn liberal Jewish guy. He's the city's comptroller, which is basically the accountant, and is like just a good dude. And him like vouching for Mamdani, I think everybody, like it certainly calmed a lot of Democrats down. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But, you know, he did some good video work too. It wasn't just a matter of like having guys that know how to put good shit on Instagram. Mamdani was fucking everywhere. It was like the teams, the canvassers worked their asses off. They were in every neighborhood, you know, spreading the good word. But it wasn't the sort of thing where they were like, they talked about the policies that he had, which were basically like about making the city more affordable, about like making it so that you are not going to, you know, like freezing the rent on rent controlled apartments, about this idea of like publicly owned grocery stores in neighborhoods that don't really have them. That all of this stuff is like, it's not crazy, you know, it's certainly not like the idea of like full communism, whatever. It's just like basic good government shit that has been like tried and has worked in other places.
It's the stuff that he's proposing specifically, like, you know, government run grocery stores. I haven't read a white paper on how, you know, efficient that is. If that's a great use of whatever, it very well could be. But that type of thing is part of New York's DNA, like the progressive era in, you know, whatever, the 20s was all about, we're going to build parks, we're going to do sanitation, the city will provide services that make the city more livable. What's interesting is that to get those kinds of policies now, you have to have a guy who's saying, I am running as a Democratic Socialist. And people go, whoa, what is that?
What did you just say?
And it turns out it just means public transit and like government services for things that only the government can provide. And basic shit.
Yes, which is the sort of thing that it's, again, I think it sort of speaks to the ways in which like the Democrat elite in New York City, but I think just in general has kind of like fucked up here, where it's like Cuomo ran a more or less normal statewide Democratic campaign in a city where he was basically spending a lot of time kind of like lavishing over the horrors of life in the cities and then being like, unbelievable, disgusting. At night, you know, like just like Travis Bickle shit. But that was it.
But campaigning to the people who live in the city. Your city is a cesspool. It's by the way, kind of the same way Caruso ran in LA. It was the city is so dangerous. The city is so disgusting. Caruso had this line. I'm sorry. This is a tangent, but I need to say this.
No. We've already established that I'm here for whatever Rick Caruso anecdotes you've got.
Something that he said repeatedly was, he was like, crime is out of control. People are taking off their jewelry before they go to dinner. And that was so telling that is his constituency, is, you know, rich people in Santa Monica who are like, before I go to the extremely nice restaurant I'm going to sit at next to the, like, you know, heat lamp and I'm going to drink wine, I have to take my jewelry off because I'm worried a man will run by and snatch my necklace.
Tuck my link before getting an Uber outside of Bar Ama.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
That's
like,
fake.
Come on.
It's fake, and it also only appeals to rich people who hate the city they live in. That's the only constituency. And that seems like Cuomo was doing the same thing.
But this is where I think the Mamdani, the difference sort of was. Like, I like the policies. I look forward to seeing how they work. I hope they do.
Yeah.
The other thing that he was doing, and this is like the vibe that I think people caught underneath all of that and that sort of buoyed it was that, and I think it's how I feel about living in New York. I think a lot of New Yorkers feel this way. He likes New York. Like he was out doing New York shit. And so a lot of the, like, not even just for the videos, but like the sort of like places that people would encounter him. Like in the videos, he made a point of like being on the subway, eating like a halal cart chicken thing, like all like things that are like, it's not even like stuff that you love about living in New York. It's just the stuff of living in New York.
I saw that the day after the election was the first time I saw that halal chicken cart video because people were sharing it again. And I felt this is the best political communication I've maybe ever seen.
Should we talk about it in some detail? Because it's like, it's a policy hidden inside a mimetic video that is deeply New York coded.
Yes, you're right. Let's explain the video first. He goes to different, so there's halal cart street vendors who do lamb on rice, chicken on rice on like almost every street corner in New York. He goes up to them, he says, how much does it cost here? It's $10 for chicken on rice, for lamb on rice. And then he asks like, how much does it cost you guys to have a permit to work here? And he explains in like 90 seconds, he gets these guys to explain, in order to get a street vendor permit, they have to pay a middleman 20 grand because that person has some line to the city and is able to get a permit that should be $500, should just be an application process. That person is like holding the permit and they have to do a payoff to this guy who makes 20 grand for doing nothing. And that is why your chicken on rice is expensive.
And he's basically like, if we got rid of that, if we get rid of this like rentier class that serves no purpose, then your chicken on rice is $8 again, like it used to be. Again, fucking perfect, right?
Brilliant.
Because it's a sort of, even if that's not something that you eat, it is something that I think every New Yorker sort of understands. And there's more and less effective ways to sort of run against it. But there's a lot of the city's elite like is finance capital. Like, and we can talk more about whether they qualify as like sort of purpose-free rentier collector guys too. But there's also a lot of guys where it's just like, this guy bought a parking garage in 1977 and now he has $1 billion. Like, or it's just like, this guy runs John Katsimatidis, who's a city personality. He ran for mayor as a Republican, owns what is like universally considered, and it's a very rare point of consensus among New Yorkers, Gristedes grocery stores, the worst grocery stores in New York City. Everybody knows it. They suck. They smell like a diaper. They look like do you ever see the movie Blue Steel?
No.
All right. Well, it's a good movie. It's early Catherine Bigelow. But there's a scene at the beginning of it where Jamie Lee Curtis shoots a guy that's holding up a grocery store. Every Gristedes looks like that. Blue Steel came out in 1989. Like, it's just not like the way that you want a shopping experience to go. And so that guy coming out and being like, I'm going to fucking move out of the city. I'm going to close all my grocery stores. Like, I got no reason to be here because he's going to raise taxes. And all of these guys sort of revealing themselves as being like, I think every New Yorker knows to a certain extent that gumming up the works in every process is not just like some city agency with a bunch of people who take long lunches, but is like some rich guy squeezing that process and making it so that things don't flow the way that they're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And so to communicate that message through this medium of like a short video about a thing that New Yorkers know about, that like puts a finger on an issue that I think like is broadly understood in a way that like sort of is considered to be outside of politics. Like no one talks about fixing shit like that.
Yeah.
Certainly like Cuomo did not. And like to the extent that there's, I think for a lot of people that have run for mayor, de Blasio was like this too, that the job is not a stepping stone. It is a terminal position. You're like going to be hectored by the public into an early grave. That's the job.
The entire city will try to kill you as soon as you have the job.
At all times.
And by the end of 8 years, if you get that far, you will be dead.
Yeah.
And you're done.
Which is why the job is why only freaks sort of run for it. Mamdani does not seem like he is using this. It may well be the sort of thing that leads to make it a stepping stone for national, political ambitions. But it hasn't worked for any mayor in my lifetime. Yeah. And it's just generally not. So, but the idea of like.
It's never worked for any, I can't think of even like LaGuardia, what extremely successful progressive mayor, remember by the city, never went on. Did he? Yeah, he never went on.
I don't think he was the governor or anything.
I don't think so either.
But again, it was a guy that like, that is, I think as a mayor, like that's the standard that I feel like everybody could be going toward. He was just passionately about doing New York shit and doing things that people could see. But every park that we have, basically, except for Central Park, is like a Fiorello LaGuardia win.
Yes.
And the city could have gone any number of ways at that time. Like there were this, it was years after this sort of like machine that like generally it functioned, but it was very corrupt. The idea of like making it so that you feel as if you're getting something from the place that you're living, like not getting it for free, but getting more or less what you should by rights feel entitled to, expect from a place, I think is a really powerful, like for as a voter, it's the sort of thing where like seeing him talking about it, same extent, like Lander is also a guy that was more of a technocrat, but was sort of like, here's how we're going to make this shit work better. Like that's speaking my language. It's just also like, it doesn't ordinarily resonate with non-weirdos in the way that it did in this case.
Watching Mandani, it really seems like he did the basic thing that politicians are supposed to do yet almost never do, which is he established like a link with the place that felt genuine, and then he told people how he was going to make their lives better. This is what like every Democratic consultant would tell you to do, and yet the people they consult with never actually do it. What was brilliant to me about the chicken over rice thing was what I miss most about New York is the group mind of New Yorkers, is that you feel like you are a part of a community of 8 million people. I remember when I first moved here and I had a commute from Brooklyn into Manhattan, and I really felt like I'm a part of, like I'm on the L train. We're all packed in. We all get out. We all get a coffee from the cart. It's 20 degrees out. You go into your, it's raining, whatever it is, you're all facing the same thing. You're part of this giant thing that's breathing in and out. But you're also your own little ant walking along. And so like, why talk about chicken over rice? Like he didn't even do pizza. He didn't even do bacon, egg, and cheese, right? Which are like the famous New York staples. He did chicken over rice. That's not a famous New York staple. It's just what people fucking eat. And so when he said that, I was like, it brought me back to living here, to being just a little ant scurrying around a subway tunnel, and said, oh, this guy he's part of the same world that I live in.
And I think he really spoke to that, like that sort of like broad portion of New Yorkers, where it's basically, if this is oversimplifying, but I think not totally oversimplifying, that if Cuomo was basically like running to be elected mayor by Long Island.
Do you think Cuomo even knows that chicken over rice exists?
He's not a guy that walks on the sidewalk. He made a point of not taking the subway. Like everywhere he went, he has this black Dodge Charger that he drives, like the fucking guy from Burn Notice. That's how he gets from one place to the next. And he drove it all through like Midtown Manhattan. There were videos of him just like parking it in a bike lane so he could go in and like do an interview. Fucking like not a guy not doing New York shit. But I think the thing that Mamdani, like the message that came through all of that is basically like, New York is great. I like living here. It should be better. It should be easier. You shouldn't have to leave because you don't have enough money. Whereas like, if you put that is a positive message. It is promising a thing that he will or won't be able to deliver. But when you put that up against like a rich Westchester guy just doing Travis Bickle monologues. Like it just feels different. Like, and if you live here, if you like are willing to deal with the indignities of being a part of this living thing, because like part of, like I agree with what you're saying. And I'm in the tank for New York. I don't want to leave. Like I've been here. I grew up outside of it, and living here was like something that like legitimately felt like what you do when you grow up. Like it felt like a dream. And then to actually be able to do it, like it's still, I can be romantic about it, but also part of being like on those days that you're describing where it's 20 degrees and like somehow it's slushy, but not snowy. You are not so much being breathed out by the subway as like crapped into the streets. Like, like, and it sucks. But also, like, it's a type of suck that everybody shares, more or less. Like, not everybody is just, like, driving their Dodge Charger up and parking on the fucking sidewalk outside their... Like, that's cop behavior. That's, like, out-of-town shit. It's different.
Well, so now that Zohran has won, a lot of American political culture is freaking out. The front page of the New York Times was so schizophrenic. Where it was... you could tell that, to the extent that the New York Times is the house organ of like A, the Democratic Party, and B, sort of high end, educated Harvard elite America. They both had to recognize, oh God, here's a new generational political talent who should be celebrated to some degree, but also there's some level of terror that we have.
So the Times they decided that they weren't going to endorse in elections anymore, which was like, I guess after you've endorsed like Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren at the same time, and then both of them instantly drop out, you're sort of like, oh, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't do this. But they wrote a sort of qualified, unsigned editorial where they were like, do not rank Zohran Mamdani. He does not deserve to be on your ballot. And then he fucking won. Yeah. It wasn't just the sort of like, they should be taking a look at themselves. And I just don't think that they're going to do that.
It's part of the New York Times no longer being a local paper at all, right? Yeah. They've cut all the local coverage. They clearly have no connection with the city. They're only doing national reporting. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, people criticize the New York Times all day long. I'm like, given the state of media in general, I'm like, thank God that there's one place that still employs that many journalists.
Right.
Does plenty of good in the world.
It's a complicated thing because they've done a lot of stuff that I think is like authentically evil and has hurt a lot of people and will hurt a lot of people. They also are indispensable. Like, and those two things have to exist in your mind at the same time. But, like, they do important work. Also, though, like, they should go to The Hague for the way they've written about trans issues. Like, full stop. There's no apologizing for that.
And also, they employ like 2 or 3 of my favorite columnists. Right? Like, M. Gesson wrote an incredible piece after the Skrmetti decision.
One of the and also a great one about the sort of use and abuse of anti-Semitism in the mayoral campaign. Yeah, like I think that, you know, employing M. Gesson and Jamel Bowie and all this, like that is it's an important thing. Somebody should be, I mean, obviously.
Except someone is at the top of the New York Times going like, yeah, I employ people you do like, but it's also my job to employ the worst people in media for you.
Right. Like the idea is you got to hear both sides. Like these guys that actually know what they're talking about. And then like Brett Stevens flat on his back dictating a column to himself from a beach chair somewhere. Like that's both of them, both sides of the argument.
Oh, the left is getting a little bit too upset about climate change.
Yeah. It's the amount of work that is required. Like right.
Just taking a sip of his marg.
In the Harkonnen bath, being like, I'm a little concerned about the idea of government-run supermarkets. That's a bit too far. Oh, I'm levitating. Hold on. Yeah, like, fuck off, dude. Like, it's terrible to me.
Disgusting. So they have this freak out where they're like, oh, wow, he stuns Cuomo. A new star rise in the Democratic Party. You know, is Mamdani going to bomb Israel?
Yeah, like that's the bit of it that it's been, and I don't know that it's possible to sustain this for the next few months, but I feel like if anyone could do it, it would be like the New York Times and Jake Tapper. All of the discourse around Mamdani has been like, do you reject and denounce Hamas? Mm-hmm. And he was a Palestinian activist, like he is a Muslim man. There's no reason why this should be an issue here, especially because like he has said, like all of the stuff that he's been called to account for, he's given like very like articulate answers that are just not being accepted. Like what they need to hear is like Israel has a right to defend itself. Like all of that shit is like, and why is that an issue here to me?
I think part of it is that still in the Democratic Party, there is a refusal to accept that defense of the Palestinian people or concern about the actions of the government of Israel on any level is a legitimate political position, when in fact it is a mainstream part of American politics. I'm not going to sit here and read a poll number about how many people are, concerned about, the Palestinians and what Israel is doing in Gaza, but it's a large part of the American people.
A large and growing percentage of the American people.
Even if it's fucking 30% or something like that, right? I don't, I think it's more, but like, it's not insane that you could have a political star rise who comes from that part of American political culture.
And that's the bit of it that I think really like is jarring to me outside of, my own politics on this are pretty well aligned with what Mamdani has said.
Yeah.
But also there's something about this feeling of being like policed by the Times or by Jake Tapper or by whatever, just this idea of trying to like make everybody get in line with this, honestly pretty dead consensus that, it's still the sort of the prevailing ideology in the Democratic Party. Not only do I think that it's futile, I think it's like, it feels insulting. Like there's a part of me where, especially, and this is maybe more of a New Jersey opinion than a New York opinion. I did grow up in New Jersey. Like I get offended by being lectured about shit or being talked down to about stuff by people that don't have any skin in the game the way that I do. And that like, and some of this is like with New Jersey, it's always people being like, yeah, your beaches are covered in syringes. And when I was a kid, I had to be like, well, yeah, but like, we like it that way. Fuck you, whatever. Like, I don't know. There's like a defiance kind of built into it. And to hear this attempt at like this election has real stakes for me outside of like what it means to elect a Democratic Socialist in a, citywide election or whatever. Like, I mean, that has stakes for me too, ideologically. In a more practical sense, the city being governed by somebody who is not a cat's paw of literally Donald Trump or somebody that hates New York and doesn't live here, that means a lot. Yeah. I want the city to work better because I don't want to live anywhere else. This is, this is my home. And the idea that all of that is somehow secondary to the offense against the like some sort of like imagined politesse that like the Times editorial board or a couple of guys on TV have, like you're going to have to like stow that. We've got to fix our problems first. And then if you got like, if you want to talk to him about it, you can do it. But like this conversation is about a different thing.
I think if anything, I hope that, I don't think they're going to take this lesson, but like the establishment of the Democratic Party and like this part of the media, I think needs to take the lesson that like this extremely narrow position that they insist people take on the actions of the government of Israel doesn't matter as much as they think it does in American politics. Right. It's part of American politics. There can be disagreements about it. It will affect people's chances. But like I've been here for 3 weeks now. It seems like literally the only thing they were running on was, Mamdani supports Hamas.
Yeah.
And people in New York were just like, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Also,
about
like, I don't think so,
what
man.
What is the relevance?
Doesn't seem like it. Yeah.
A, doesn't seem like it. B, I know a lot of people with a lot of different positions, and this guy does not seem beyond the pale. And C, we're talking about where I live. Yeah. We're not. Why is that?
Exactly.
That's foreign policy. This is the mayor of New York.
Yes, and there is like, and so that like the attempt at sort of like nationalizing the race. I mean, Adams is going to do it. Cuomo did it. It is a very like it's very the Democrats in 2025 to me to like try to fight this on national issues that you're also underwater on and confusing about. That like that I just don't see the percentage in it. Like this is the thing that's been like hardest for me to deal with. I mean, I understand that like a lot of these issues are important to donors and that the Democratic Party at the highest levels relies on big, only tenuously liberal people to fund it. And so I don't know that makes me like sympathetic to what like Kirsten Gillibrand and Chuck Schumer are going through, but it like I understand how they got where they are.
Yeah, it's not sympathetic, but you can say like that's how the system works. I see the way it happened.
The other thing though that is weird to me is that like so this is a charismatic 33-year-old progressive guy who just came out of nowhere, did a bunch of innovative stuff, beat this like heavyweight of the party, and I think is going to be elected mayor.
Yeah.
Any party that was interested in actually winning would be trying to take lessons from that and to see how determined they are to not just like not be like, all right, well, what worked here? What can we use? What kind of candidates like this can we find? They're just like, no, not like this. And that is loser shit, first and foremost. Yeah. But also it's just fucking confounding.
It's unbelievable. Mamdani literally, you could look at his campaign as taking the lessons of why Democrats lost in 2024. And right after the 2024 election, Democrats were like, oh, it was inflation, the cost of living. Trump won by saying groceries, groceries, groceries. Here's Mamdani winning on saying, I'll make your halal cart meat $2 less expensive. Yeah. His entire campaign was about affordability, which is inflation, which is the thing the Democrats said they should be running on. And engagement with the local people of the place that he lived. Blah, blah. He ran a textbook campaign. He just like, comes from a slightly more left wing of the party and has an opinion on, the Israeli genocide of the people of Gaza that you don't agree with. But fucking look at what he did, what you fucking want people to do.
Do you want to win or not? Like, and that to me, like, this is like deepish Mamdani lore. First time I remember seeing a video of him. So this is in 2024. He went out, he was in the Bronx and he was in Queens in neighborhoods so nationally, New York City moved to the right in the presidential election more dramatically than any other metroplex. And so he basically was like doing almost that kind of like obnoxious YouTuber thing where you like walk up to someone in the park and be like, "Do you eat ass?" You know, like that where you're just kind of like running up on someone that maybe doesn't want to talk to you and asking them a question. But Mamdani,
I should start doing that.
I should. It's a good way to find out whether people eat ass or not. But it's also, in this case though, he would go up to people and be like, "Who'd you vote for and why?" And it was just like regular people on the street that would be like, you know, look like New Yorkers, but just be like, "Yeah, I voted for Trump because like it's like really expensive to go to the grocery store now."
Yeah.
Like, or like I drive a car and gas is really expensive. And like, again, a lot of that is like, you can only do so much with it, but that's where it started. That was like sort of, if you wanted to like take the genesis of this campaign back to, you know, in a way that only like real hardcores would even know about. That was basically it. Like, he was like, "What do you want?" And then he ran a campaign being like, "I heard what you said you wanted. I'm going to try to do it."
Yeah.
There is a lesson there. Not at a national level, you can't do what he did, where he's just like, every 10th person in New York City has shaken his hand in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe you could. Like, I think you could definitely do more than what a lot of candidates do.
Yeah.
There's one last bit. I don't want to talk too much about him because I don't know how long these podcasts are allowed to be.
We're cooking.
So one thing that it was a very clear contrast that they managed to not underline in an offensive way. But Andrew Cuomo's 67 and Zohran Mamdani's 33.
Yeah.
And in a lot of his videos, he is out doing, not just like doing New York stuff, but like walking, talking, doing stuff like pretty quickly. This is another one of the weird skills he has as a politician, is that he's able to speak very fast and articulate very well. Like, he could have been a great podcast. Honestly, he had all the tools, but he like, a lot of that stuff is like broadcasting a vitality that if you underline it, if you're doing the thing where it's like, Andrew Cuomo, 67, could never go up down these stairs the way that I'm doing it. That's rude. That's ageism.
Yeah.
But if you are just out there being like someone that is displaying energy and vigor in the way that he's doing it, I think that kind of resonates. And it's not the only reason to oppose like democratic gerontocracy, but so many of the videos that have come out of like Congress members going to confront some fucking thumbhead ICE guy who's refusing to let them into the temporary prison that they've started in the old mall somewhere. That those videos, I appreciate that Democrats are doing it, but there's also an aspect of it that's like, the tone of it is kind of heartbreaking, because it's like these like two kind of visibly frail 18-term members of Congress showing up and talking to some bouncer looking guy and being like, "Well, we want to get in." And he's like, "No." And like, poor Gerald Nadler is not in any kind of physical condition to push past anybody. He shouldn't be getting handcuffed. He's 80 years old, you know, like, and that, I think that like, to see a party that looks like it can get up and down and compete in like just the most basic physical sense, I think is important.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that he seemed like he had good ideas that people could rock with is also cool. But I think that there's, you know, if we're talking about the energetic stuff underneath it, there's another lesson there to take. But I don't know how you get, you know, multi-term members of Congress or senators to retire. I think you have to retire them. Yeah. And this is proof that, like, you know, even someone like Andrew Cuomo, who doesn't really have a constituency left, who everybody hated. I mean, he was just like a nasty man.
Yeah.
Even then, I think that you can see that like a lot of people, a lot of elected officials, a lot of people with money just got behind him because they're like, well, this is what you do. He's the guy.
Yep.
And
I mean, one donor I read in the Times today was like donated $250,000.
I love this quote. Yes.
And he said something like, you know, a lot of people mistook my donation for enthusiasm.
My $250,000 donation.
We were just like, well, it's Andrew Cuomo. Might as well get on his good side in case he wins.
Yep.
Right. Like, Cuomo. Yeah, he'll probably win. Okay. You know, this is what you do. This is status quo. Let's just do it as usual. Yep. I assume probably Bill Clinton thought the same thing when he endorsed him. It's like Bill Clinton's not excited for Andrew Cuomo. He's just like, oh, Mario's son is asking.
That's nice. Mario was a nice man.
Yeah, it's like blurbing your friend's book.
Yes, it's 100%. Yeah, except for I mean that every time I've done it. It's different. People mistake my very vague blurb for a lack of enthusiasm. That's just how you got to play ball. But yes, that Cuomo-related quote is classic to me, like, because that's a nice reminder of like what it's actually like here to a certain
Yeah.
extent. Like guys that have a spare $250,000 going around being like, whatever, give it to the fucking sociopath. I don't want to get yelled at.
Yeah.
And then when the next bit of that quote is the guy being like, I'll probably support Mamdani, whatever. I don't know. Like, sure. Like all I'm trying to do is build footlockers all across this great city. And that's my passion. I just don't want anyone to get in the way of it.
What's so frustrating is that, like, again, the way Mamdani won was by doing basic politics. Like, I've learned, I really enjoy politics. You know, I'm an elected official in my union, right? And one of the things I like about that was it was like made me think about electoral politics. Like, oh, the whole thing is like, how do you get actual people to care about this and to show up and actually vote? Like, that is the thing you have to do at the end of the day is people need to leave their house, go to the polling place and pull the little lever, right? And how do you get them to do it? And like, it's kind of always the same job, whether you're in a union or whether you're in, I don't know, a fucking school board or whatever it is, or for mayor. And Mamdani went after it in this clear way. I'm going to like show my affinity with people. I'm going to be a part of the city. I'm going to like listen to them. And when he talks about it, he says this, I'm going like, you can't tell them what to believe in. You listen to what they want. And then you say that that's what you'll do. It was basic politics. And that can win. I've also seen it win in LA. Like we've had a big progressive resurgence in LA, and it's been because we've had people run for city council who say, I know you've never even heard of your city councilman before because they're just like some suit who's trying to avoid attention so they can cut corrupt business deals with developers. But guess what? If you elect someone who actually gives a shit, then
this is a real office. I can do stuff for you.
The city might get better. Yeah. And they like literally go, hello, it's me, Nithya, you know, and he says like, Ugo, I'm a person, I live here and I could be a person to you and I could help. That's like the most basic, that's the back to basics of politics, right? If you do that and the other person doesn't do it, you can win. And so when the Democrats are out of power, you would think that, hey, why don't we go back to basics generally? Why don't we figure out what people want and then tell them we're going to do the thing? And yet when you have this the most prominent example of someone fucking doing it, the national party is like, who is this guy? What's he doing? We got to stop this. And we refuse to learn a lesson. It's incredibly frustrating.
It's frustrating. And I think it also reflects a sort of like a tentativeness that is on the part of the Democrats that I think like scans really easily and that like people respond to in a negative way where it's like there's a great Internet Hippo, I believe is the account that did the tweet.
No, I know Internet Hippo, the famous sage.
Beautiful Internet Hippo.
We all love the Internet Hippo. This is why Trump won.
It's hard to not do that. He doesn't even talk like that
but
anymore.
We love the Internet Hippo. We love him.
The Internet Hippo tweet that I'm thinking about is that voting for the Democrats is like going to a rock concert where the band spends the whole time telling the crowd to calm down. That there is like a sense of like, they want to win, but they don't want to like win by so much that they then have to do stuff. The difference with this, like what you're describing in terms of like those city council races, I'll say that like, so formative political experience of my life, like outside of, you know, I vote in every election. I'm a good boy. Like it's just how, I was raised. When I worked at Vice, this would have been like 2014. Vice still exists, but it was famously a lousy place to work. I was talking to Chris about this before, like off mic, that like just a lot of disrespect from ownership towards the people that worked there. It was people probably don't remember this. There's no reason why normal people should care about Vice, but it was like a venture-backed youth media company that was trying to get real big and sell to somebody so that the founders could cash out. It was also a fun place to work. I worked with a lot of really awesome people there.
A lot of people did great work there. I have a lot of friends who worked there too.
And it was, they more or less left you alone because the people that were in charge didn't read and didn't care what you were doing. So you could kind of, do whatever you wanted to do, like within reason, as long as you didn't get them sued. But you weren't getting paid well. And there were people that worked there for a long time that were getting paid astonishingly poorly. And so we unionized that newsroom when I was there. And
with the Writers Guild East, right?
Yep. And I was a, smallish part of it, but I was on the bargaining committee and I had some transparency on the process. But the experience I'm talking about was before we got anybody to sign cards. We got people to agree to go to a meeting, just like writers and people that had like jobs that weren't like management level jobs. So the whole newsroom, more or less. It's like 100 of us. A big group of it went to a conference room at the Writers Guild of America East office building on Greenwich Street in Lower Manhattan. And we, heard the union's spiel sort of about why it would be a good idea. But then everybody sort of like talked about the experience of working at Vice, like what it was like for them. And, how the shit that they'd been asked to do for free, the raises that they had been denied for years, the fact that they had like $60 in their bank account, even though they were like, a junior editor at some website just because of like how shitty the health insurance was. All of this stuff was like, I've never been in a space that felt like that. Like it was, I think not just because of the fact that you could see that the things that were making your life hard were also making other people's lives hard. Although that is like the fundamental of like getting somebody engaged in politics and making, learning to demand what you deserve. But it was also, you could see that everybody else was kind of waking up to the idea that like all of this suffering as individuals was not the only way that it could be. That like there was that like everybody was getting shit on, like all of us in different ways, seemingly at random, just because management didn't care about it. And that like if you got together and basically like asked for what you thought you deserved, this was the bit that, the organizers had to do some convincing on, and that some of the people that were important to getting that movement off the ground, Brian Merchant, the tech journalist, was a big part of it. We had to kind of like rally everybody and make them believe that it could be another way.
Yeah.
But once people started to believe it, it was different. Like we did get a really good contract, and, we had to wait till the last fucking minute, and we had to do a million meetings, and they were, really insulting. And like, we had to threaten to do a walkout and almost do a walkout and all the shit that is just part of the kabuki of getting a contract. But we did it. And the experience of like starting with feeling atomized and powerless and kind of like shit on, and getting from there to where we wound up is like, I mean, not just has it made me like somebody who believes in unions in a way that is not abstract. I mean, that it is like really deeply felt, but it is also like, that is a lesson that projects, that scales, and that like once you see that it's possible, you can bring to every aspect of life.
Yeah.
And it changes you. Like, and I think that maybe, I don't, it's not like the Democrats are trying to make more 47-year-old progressive New York Jewish guys. Like they've got a lot of us already, but I do think it's the sort of thing where there's a lesson there that like, if you can get people to start understanding that they can get what they want if they ask for it insistently enough, and if you keep fucking pushing and ask for it, that's like the only way that you get out of the moment that we're in right now is enough people saying no to it.
Yeah.
And, like, it's nice to be reminded that you have the option of saying no. Like, otherwise it's really easy to sort of forget and recede into yourself.
The other thing that is threaded through that story that you're telling and what just happened in New York is solidarity.
Absolutely.
Which is, that's the most important union word. And the more that I'm around it, the more it means to me. It's like, as an emotion, I think one of the most important emotions in my life.
Right.
And
because it's like a big union word, but it has, again, it's like, it's a way of being in the world.
Yeah.
It's a way of like seeing your responsibilities as a person.
Yeah. When you're in the workplace and you're like, oh, I have my issues, you have your issues, and they're linked, and together we are strong and can fight back. That's so powerful. That is also the feeling that I said that I had when I was in New York, when I lived here and I would ride on the subway with everyone on the L train and like go to the coffee cart, was solidarity with everyone else's experience. That's why, people say, oh, New York is a cold place, it's unfeeling. You cry on the subway and no one says, are you okay? Because everyone knows that's what you need.
Yeah.
But if you trip and stumble in New York, two people will help you up, right? Because you're trying to get on. We're all trying to get on our way.
Extremely true.
And that's what Zohran showed, right?
Yep.
Was like, yeah, the halal meat's too expensive. I have solidarity with you, and we can do it together. He harnessed the latent solidarity of all New Yorkers to win.
Another great bit of that video, I think that's a really good point, is that it wasn't, there's another version of that from the perspective that is entirely that of the consumer, right? Which is just like, $10 for this. It used to be $8. What the hell? I'm going to fix it. Going into the halal cart and talking to the guy that's making it and being like, hey man, why does it cost this? Like, what are you going through?
Yes.
That's the difference, man. That shit works. Like, and I think that again, that is a way of seeing the world. Like if you're completely in that like sort of the car brain thing where like everybody on the sidewalk is like somebody that might carjack you, and everyone crossing the street is like in your fucking way, and everybody else is like trying to cut in front of you or whatever. Like you can only get so far seeing the world like that. But if you sort of understand it as being a part of a bigger whole that can be moved like through a concerted enough effort from all those parts.
Yep.
It's a whole, new ballgame at that point.
And if the Democrats were able to, or if anybody nationally, politically was able to harness
it's so funny to be talking about all this inspiring real shit and then just have to keep coming back to the Democrats.
If Chuck Schumer could just experience solidarity, then we would solve American politics.
Like
but it's the thing
corporate lawyer automaton Hakeem Jeffries. If only he had to transfer at Smith and 9th Street through that annoying underground tunnel from the F to the R, maybe we could reach him. I mean, probably not. I don't know. But
I mean, look, at the highest level of the labor movement, right? They have also forgotten the same lesson. If you look at like the head of the top of the AFL-CIO or whatever, they have more probably a sense of solidarity than most organizations, but you get to those levels, things become top down, they become political in the broader sense rather than political in the human sense. And that lesson is forgotten. But to me, like the way to solve politics is to, go from that street level where if you beat the pavement, if you have solidarity with the people who are in your community and you actually address their real issues, you will always win. That'll always work at local politics. If you can bring that up the chain to the national level, like that is how you could actually like transform America for the better. And that's what I hope that somebody is paying attention to with Zohran's win.
Yeah, it's hard too. I mean, it's hard to like get, this is a big country. There's a lot of different, experiences of life here. I think that's part of what, what was inspiring to me about the 2 Bernie runs and the sort of the Fight Oligarchy tour or whatever it is they were calling it that he was doing with Alexandria.
With AOC.
Yeah. That to me, like, is an attempt at doing that. It's basically going someplace and like, this was how he managed to run as well as he did, was he would go places and be like, tell me what you're going through, more or less.
Yeah.
And I remember videos of this. I mean, obviously it's like kind of played to be, I don't know if it's played. I mean, I believe it. I find Bernie Sanders to be a very admirable guy, but videos of him in like Iowa with like 15 people and someone's like, it's humiliating, Bern, the way I treat us at work, like all this stuff. And it's like, that's like, people are programmed not to say stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly you wouldn't talk to a politician like that a lot of the time because it's like, you'd just be mad at them because you assume that they're complicit in all of the stuff that's happening to you that's humiliating. So to have it be that people see themselves as like, not just like customers of a politician or patrons of a politician, but like somebody who has like a relationship with them that they expect to be, like treated with respect.
Yeah.
That's a good place to start, but I guess it's probably easier said than done.
I mean, the path forward has been charted a little bit, in the past week. It's pretty fucking sick to see. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about it.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk to you about your wonderful work at Defector. Give me maybe we'll come back later and do like a talk about like media, but just real quick for people who don't know Defector, tell folks what it is and where they can find it.
Sure. So it's defector.com is the website. Briefly, the origin story there. So after Vice, I worked at a website called Deadspin that was like a sports and culture website. That company got bought by private equity. They fired our editor, and then they fired another one of our editors, like our editor-in-chief. And we're basically trying to dictate what we could cover and what we couldn't. So all of us quit at the same time, and we started a new website in September of 2020. Great time to be starting a business. But it was like, we all wanted to stay working together. And Deadspin was a popular website. It was a profitable website.
A beloved website.
Yeah. It was like a bit like an old growth sort of internet thing. And so we started again. It's a different model. It's subscription stuff. You can get a free, a few articles to read and see if you like them. But yeah, we started it and we're going to turn 5 in September. Like, it's working. We're up, we've grown. And there's more of us, and a lot of the core group that started it, some of them have gone on to like go work at ESPN or the Washington Post and stuff like that. But for the most part, we've hung together, and we're having fun. It's a good website. I think we've had a good few weeks.
You, the journalists, own it.
Yes.
It is reader funded, and it is, what I love about it is that it is like one of the last homes of really good, voicey, fun writing on the internet. When I go read it, I'm like, here's some freak who's writing in great detail about something they give a shit a lot about. They're trying to make me laugh with their writing. They're not, being ground down into either edited corporate speak or social media, whatever like pops on the algo.
Yeah.
It's like written by a human, and it's designed to delight and inform and anger me.
See, when you say it, I almost believe it. I feel good about that. Like that's how I would pitch it if I was more comfortable pitching shit like that. I mean, like, we have serious stuff and we run real journalism, but the story that went biggest for us this week was by a very funny blog by Barry Paczewski about a hurdler competing in a race in Scandinavia who won and set a personal best despite the fact that his dick and balls fell out like 5 times during the race. And there's video in the post. It's a very nominal fee if you wanted just a monthly subscription. You just wanted to see it. But it was like, that's still part of our bread and butter. Like, it's not like clickbait. Because
that's fucking blogging, man.
Yes, it is. And I also wrote a serious thing about Andrew Cuomo. We had good, serious-minded stuff. But it was the post with the words dick and balls in the headline was the one that drove the most subs this week.
Look, incredible writing about politics, culture, sports, dick and balls.
Dicks.
That's
balls.
what you get from defector.com. Go check it out. Dave Roth, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Well, thank you once again to Dave for coming on the show. And thank you to everybody who supports the show on Patreon. If you'd like to join them, head to patreon.com/Adam Conover. $5 a month gets you every episode of the show ad-free. For $15 a month, I'll read your name in the goddamn credits. This week, I want to thank Hey Look a Distraction, Nina Nachtman, Uber Elder, Avaro Eggberger, Tracy, Aaron Harmony, Joseph Mode, Rodney Patnam, and Greg 0692. If you'd like me to read your name or silly username at the end of the show, head to patreon.com/Adam Conover. We would love to have you. Once again, if you want to come see me on the road, Des Moines, Iowa, Brea, California, Philly, Pittsburgh. I got some new dates coming up soon that we're going to announce in the near future. Head to adamconover.net for all those tickets. I want to thank my producers, Tony Wilson and Sam Roudman. Everybody here at HeadGum for making the show possible. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time on Factually.
That was a HeadGum podcast.